Hey y'all, Brandon Renus here. Hope you're doing absolutely amazing. Let me adjust this a little bit as we're talking. All right, so what I do is I surround myself with people that I do not agree with. I still have a few pages that I kind of agree with and I like to follow, but in general, I surround myself with pages I do not agree with. And usually my videos are off of topics that they're talking about and I want to debunk them or talk about things in reality or what I perceive as reality compared to what they're talking about. So today, Robert Reich is the victim. Now, Robert Reich, he has a resistance report that comes out pretty close to every single day right now. He's very upset with Donald Trump. He was a huge, I shouldn't say huge, but he definitely jumped on the bandwagon for Hillary Clinton. He's just a typical lefty. I think his economics are about as backwards as you could possibly find. And so when I listen to him and I try to understand him and I try to always have an idea of where the left is coming from. I feel like if you're only surrounding yourself with people that think like you, you're kind of brainwashing yourself. You're not educated. So Robert Reich, in his resistance report, he complained about how Andy Huster is going to be the new Secretary of Labor. Now, Andy Huster, I believe he owns all the Carl's Jr.'s, or at least a lot of the Carl's Jr.'s and a lot of the Hardys. And he's a very wealthy man. And this is where Robert Reich goes from, okay, here's what I'm telling you, and then goes straight into fear-mongering. He calls the man, I'm not exaggerating, a violent anti-union, anti-minimum wage, anti-overtime person. Okay? If he just said, hey, he's anti-union, anti-minimum wage, and anti-overtime, he would have been accurate. But as soon as he goes into violent, he's fear-mongering. He's going, oh shoot, I'm going to tint this person really dark. The issues that the issues I have with them, the anti-minimum wage, the anti-union, those aren't strong enough issues for me to actually defend or point out his flaws. I have to call him this dark thing by calling him a violent person. Could you imagine if I came up to you and I started introducing you to my friend and I was like, hey, this is Bob, my violent friend who's anti ... I mean, it's absurd. And as far as I know, he's not a violent human being that hasn't beat up anybody. He doesn't have some record of abuse or anything like this. It's just fear-mongering. And both sides do it, but I'm just pointing it out with Robert Reich. It's disgusting. So I'm going to go down this list of things that he is against. So he's anti-union. I don't know the details on things like this, on like how anti-union the man is. But my experience is I am anti-union. People call me, when I say anti-union, it's not that I'm anti-union as in I believe you have the freedom to start your own union anytime you want, whenever you want. And if you can get people together to create a union, more power to you. So I'm not anti-union from a perspective of you don't have the freedom to do it. I'm anti-union from the perspective of I understand economics. I understand that if you unionize and you go, oh yeah, hey, let's all get paid $40 an hour and our competition's going to pay their employees $20 an hour, I understand that you're putting yourself at a competitive disadvantage. You are forcing your employer to either A, cut a bunch of jobs, B, not handle the union and completely fight you, or C, leave our country. You can't pay employees, one set of employees. Let's say you guys have two competing shoe companies. If one company is paying their employees 10% more, 15% more, and the other company is not, you have the company that's paying the 15% more, they have a huge disadvantage. How are they going to make up for that? Well, they need to get at least 15% more production per employee in order to make it worthwhile. And most of the time, my experience, and I've worked with, I wouldn't say a ton, but a lot of union people, is that union people, in my experience, are not the hardest working. They are not getting the most done. I've been to shipyards. It's a disaster. They're some of the laziest people you've ever seen. I've got friends in the shipyard. They'll testify and tell you the same thing. I've worked with unions when it comes to working on power lines because we build cell towers and we'd have to put them on the power lines. And these guys would be unionized. And they would get I don't want to exaggerate, at 1/3 the amount done that 3 of us would get done in one day, 3 of them would get done 1/3 of what we would get done. They weren't more efficient, they weren't harder working, but they have a monopoly because they are the only ones that are allowed to work on power lines. So they were able to unionize and they are able to have power. So there's unions I support and there's unions I don't. For example, the UFC fighters, they're trying to unionize, they're thinking about it. So that way they can get themselves better health care and that way they can get themselves better benefits and better pay. Okay, that's fine. They actually have leverage because the UFC can't go out there and just get more UFC fighters that are top of the line, best in the world fighters. These guys actually have leverage. When we're trying to promote ourselves as some union person and go, oh man, I deserve 40 bucks an hour. Yeah, I deserve more than this 20 bucks you're paying me. What is my leverage that I have? If I am that valuable, I don't need a union. I can just say, hey, I am going to leave your company if you don't pay me that. And if I'm really worth 40 bucks an hour, they're going to say, oh, no. Stay in our company. We can't afford to lose you. We will pay you that $40 an hour. But if I'm not worth it, they say, peace out. But oftentimes these unions, they get together, they get a bunch of people and they say, you need to pay us all more money. And the company has two choices. A, pay these guys more money and go bankrupt, or B, leave the country. And that's what these unions force. So if the man is anti-union, as in he doesn't believe people can create one or join one, okay, I would be against that. But as far as I know, he's just anti-union from a perspective that it's bad business. And it is. The reason that these small businesses, the reason Walmart, the reason McDonald's, the reason these guys, when they go and unionize or they threaten to unionize, it doesn't matter. What is McDonald's going to do? But you're like, oh yeah, you want more money? Okay, I can hire anybody to do your job. Your job is a low level, low IQ, low smarts, low self-esteem, low whatever, and I can replace you with other human beings, no problem. So they have very little leverage when it comes to actually making more wages. The point, in my opinion, of working at one of those jobs is to gain skills, to actually gain credibility. Hey, I actually worked at McDonald's. I worked there for a year. I showed up on time every single day. I showed up and I did a better job than they asked me to do. I moved up in the ranks. I worked whatever hours they wanted to. And then when you go to your next job, you can demand more money, or you can demand more money from McDonald's. Chances are you probably won't get it, but you may be able to move up to manager or different things of this kind. But that's the point. You create your own power. A union groups everybody up and says, hey, we're all worth ... And all it does, as long as you have a free market, is it gives your competition an advantage. The best way to make better wages is to outperform the people around you, show up on time, work your tail off, and make it to the point where they don't want to lose you. Because if they lose you, they lose money, so they are going to pay you more money when you threaten to leave. Really pretty simple, guys. All right. He's also anti the federal minimum wage. Now, I actually agree with him 100% on this. Now, this is going to be shocking. A lot of people are, all for $15 minimum wage, $20 minimum wage, living wages, all these different things. Okay, first of all, I'm going to make it really clear to you from my perspective. I do not believe you can support the minimum wage and be anti-discrimination. I do not know how it's possible. When you support the minimum wage, you are telling employers, you, sir, are not allowed to hire this person unless you pay them $15 an hour, or whatever the minimum wage is set at. Let's say it's 15. So that you're telling that employer, you, sir, are supposed to discriminate against absolutely everyone who is not worth $15 an hour. You are supposed to not hire them. You are supposed to discriminate against them. And you are only supposed to hire people who are smart enough, hard enough working, have good enough IQ that are worth $15 an hour. That is discrimination. And in fact, it hurts minorities. It hurts the poor. It hurts the poorly educated the most. Why would you do this? I despise discrimination. I despise it with everything in me. And we're promoting this with federal government programs? Absolutely, I'm against it. I don't believe the federal government should ever promote discrimination. Who gets hurt the most by this? People that, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. Think about poor children that grow up, let's go with anybody, but think of a minority person or anybody that grows up in a welfare state. So you grow up in government housing. You're surrounded by poor people. You're surrounded by druggies. You're surrounded by alcoholics. You're surrounded by people who are lazy. You're surrounded by druggies and prostitutes and gang members. You go to the worst public schools out there. Oftentimes you drop out. Let's say you're a motivated person. Who do you have to look to? You're a motivated person, you want to go take on the world, and you are surrounded by downers. You go to public school, and it is the crappiest public schools out there in those areas. Those are always the really crappy public schools. And so now you're surrounded by all this. You drop out of school, and the government says that employer has to discriminate against you. If I'm an employer, I look at that kid, and I don't know if you guys know football at all, but Pete Carroll is the Seahawks coach, and he looks at people and he says, that kid has drive. He's been told no his entire life. I'm going to give this kid a chance. And employers like myself, and in my opinion, most average people that are just basic employers, that's what they want to do. They want to say, hey, this kid might not be able to do math that well. He might not be able to be that hard of a worker because he doesn't know. He hasn't been told how to work hard. He doesn't know how to show up on time. But I'm willing to give this kid a chance. I'm willing to give him $5-6 an hour just to give him a chance. And if he proves himself to work his tail off, sweet, I get to keep him. And I'll be able to pay him better wages because he'll be able to learn the skills. And I won't want to lose him because he will be motivated to become a better person. But no, the government says, nope, you got to be in government housing where you're screwed. You're surrounded by horrible people. You're going to go to our government school, which is horrible. And then we're going to discriminate against you and force employers not to hire you. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't care if you are some horrible, evil person that has crappy parents and you beat up kids. I don't wish that on you. That is horrible. And this creates a cycle. Now that kid, he can't get a job, so he ends up in a gang. If it's a girl, she ends up as a prostitute. She ends up stuck on drugs. He ends up stuck on drugs. They end up with diseases. They end up in government housing. The same exact cycle over and over and over. And this is what the federal minimum wage promotes. You're promoting discrimination. And you are forcing people who have been dealt the short end of the stick, who have been dealt such a horrible deck of cards, you are forcing them to be stuck in this miserable position. I despise that. I want people to be able to work their way up and move up the ranks. To me, that is a beautiful thing. It is powerful. And I will never support a federal minimum wage unless, I guess, some facts come up and just show me how I'm completely wrong. But I don't know how I am. I'm always open. I debate politics and education and economics all the time. So I feel like I'm pretty well versed on this topic, but I'm still trying to stay open-minded. Also, he's anti-overtime. Okay, well, let's just go down the same road. Anti-overtime. Now, I work, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to right now. I work under the table at the moment. I also do some legal stuff or not legal stuff, but trading online, which is all over the table. But I work for a fellow, a good friend of mine, under the table, and I work my tail off for him. So now, I don't get paid overtime. But if I got paid overtime, he wouldn't hire me more than 40 hours a week. So that would mean if I wanted to make that extra money, I would have to go find a second job, which would mean I'd have to drive there, which would wear my vehicle out, it would cost me gas, and then I might make a few extra bucks on the side. But instead, I get to make just my regular wages and work 50 hours a week for that same guy without overtime pay. I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that. If you are valuable, and you are valuable enough to your company, you can ask for special favors or special, hey, when I'm going to work for you more than 20 hours a week, I'm going to make overtime. Okay, if you're worth that, the company is willing to pay that. But when the government tells an employer, this is how you have to pay your employees, well, guess what? As soon as you hit 40 hours a week, boom, you're kicked out. Or what's even worse, let's say that company knows that they probably need you for 50 hours a week. They're going to start your wages in comparison to what they're going to have to pay you in overtime. So you're going to be working your 40 hours a week for less than you're actually worth, so that way they can finance that 10 extra hours that they're going to pay you in overtime. Does that make sense? So when you don't make that overtime, you're actually making less money every single week that you're only putting 40 hours a week in. This is the point of what the government does, and it destroys marketplaces. Every single rule, every single regulation, it has consequences on the employee. The employers, they don't have consequences to a degree. They know how to line their pockets. They're going to make money. They're going to work with the rules and regulations, and they are going to find a way to make money. But the person who pays the penalty is the poor kid who grew up in a horrible situation. It's the person who wants to work an extra 10 hours, but the employer is forced to say, I can't pay you for an extra 10 hours because the government will send me to prison or jail if I don't pay you overtime. And I can't afford that. An employer is not going to spend money. As an employer, when I hire someone, I don't spend an extra dollar on a person than they make me. So for example, if you make, let's say you're working on a project for me, let's say you're making shoes for me again. So you're building these shoes, you're making them, everything's good, and you are able to make enough shoes that I am able to profit $20 an hour from your labor. I am not going to pay you $25 an hour in order for you to make me shoes that are worth only $20 an hour. I am going to lose money, and if I lose money, I can't afford to pay you. It's really that simple. So what the government does is it tells employers how to pay and how to not pay their employees, and the loser is the employees. The loser is the person who is not worth whatever those wages are. He then gets into this argument of how he wants to compare what's the guy's name? Andy Huster's, what he makes. And he says he makes more in 1 hour than a lot of his employees make in a year. Okay, that may be true. So what? We want we want his employees to make more money? Well, the reality is that if he was treating his employees so poorly and so badly, his competition would be able to take them from him. It's really that simple. Let's say I'm paying you. Let's say you think you're worth $20 an hour. Let's say I'm paying you $10 an hour, and you say, I'm worth $20 an hour. And you say, peace out, I'm going to leave you, Brandon. I'm like, okay. Because I look at my bottom line and I go, okay, well, you're only worth to me $12 an hour. I can't afford to pay you $20 an hour. I'll lose money. So I'm not going to hire you for $20. And you go around and you try to get yourself a better job and nobody will hire you. Well, then all of a sudden you're going to realize, hey, I'm not worth more than $20 an hour. That's what the marketplace is. Now, granted, I would like a free market where lots of competition is going on, where there's none of these monopolies that are government controlled. I would like, without all these rules and regulations, we'd have far more jobs. Some people would be making $4 an hour, but they would be gaining the skills to be worth 20, 30, and $40 an hour down the road. They'd be gaining the skills to run their own companies down the road instead of being unemployed. But hey, doesn't matter because the government knocks you off the books and you're not considered unemployed, you're considered employed. Who cares? Just stay off the books for 2 years, boom. You automatically end up in the labor force even though you're not working at all. Really works really well for our numbers. So anyway, my point is that we want as much competition as possible. And we want all these companies fighting for employees, which means that you get your absolute top value for your worth. If there are 50 different companies fighting for me as an employee, I get to say, hey, I'm worth $20 an hour, and these companies get to fight for me. But instead what we have is so many rules and so many regulations that they force small business people like the man I work with, like myself, because I run a business also, they force people like myself to not be able to hire people. I can't handle all the rules and regulations. I can't do it. I need 5 different lawyers just to run my business. Well, if that's the case, guess who wins? The huge, big businessmen. And when those big businessmen win, they get to line their pockets because they don't have to worry about small businessmen like me competing with them because I can't handle the rules. I can't handle the regulations. I can't handle the red tape. I can't handle all the IRS headaches and paperwork and all this stuff. I have to spend so much time dealing with all of that, I can't grow my business. So who wins? The big corporations. All these rules and regulations, they help the rich, they hurt the poor, they hurt the middle class. And you're seeing this. It's all shrinking, it's all spreading. Our rules and regulations haven't shrunk. It's only gotten bigger every single year since like 1940. In fact, I think it's 1930. Every single year we have more rules and regulations on the books. And it's funny how the wealth gap keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and their solution is more rules and more regulations. By definition, that's insanity. Let's not be insane. Robert Reich, in his resistance report, also goes into complaining about how Donald Trump and his rallies, and how he just keeps doing these thank you rallies, and he brags about how amazing he is, and he talks about how great he is, and he talks about his plan and how horrible this is. He also complains about the news coverage. Well, first of all, you got an issue with the news coverage. Okay. More power to you. But the problem is news coverage, they want ratings. And right now, Donald Trump is the person that gets ratings. Just like if I'm doing my YouTube channel and I have some videos that suck, I get 50 views, and other videos that have 10,000 views. When I produce something that people want, they watch it. And right now, networks recognize that people want to see what Donald Trump's about. They want to see what he's going to say. They want to see what he's going to do. So, are you complaining that news networks are actually showing the American people what they want to see? This is the reason that Donald Trump was elected. There's no denying that. But the reality is that these networks are trying to stay in business. They're trying to stay afloat, and these guys are getting crushed. They're losing money hand over fist because they've lost their credibility, and they're doing whatever little bit they can to still make money. But Robert Reich, you should know that because you're an economist, and you're supposed to be a really smart guy. Finally, you complain about how Donald Trump is making all these picks that you do not like. Mr. Reich complains about how, Mr. Trump is picking all these people in his cabinet. They're horrible people. They're all, just evil people. They're going to ruin our country. They're right-wing wackos and all these different things. Well, I've got bad news for you, Mr. Reich, and I'm going to tell you that straight up. And this goes for anybody that feels the same way about Donald Trump. I voted for Donald Trump not as a proud Donald Trump supporter, but as an unwilling hater of Hillary Clinton, not a proud supporter of Donald Trump, but I recognized I was sick and tired of the establishment. And the reason we had the option to vote for a Donald Trump is because people like Robert Reich didn't stand up to Obama. They didn't stand up to Hillary Clinton, and they bent over backwards for their own party. Now, this is not just a Democrat thing. For all you Republicans, guess what? This is exactly how Obama got elected. When George W. Bush was out there creating more wars, spending our country into oblivion, no child left behind, destroying our Constitution with the Patriot Act, Democrats said, hey, we need change. We need a populist president. We need somebody that's different. And Obama had the right message. Granted, he wasn't different. He took more money from Wall Street and the big banks than any president in the history of the United States. But the point is that the reason that happened is because Republicans turned a blind eye to their own party and said, you know what? It's a Republican destroying the Constitution. We don't care. And the Democrats have done the same exact thing, including you, Mr. Reich, turning a blind eye to your own party as they have created more wars, dropping more bombs, killing more people than George W. Bush. Now, if that is what you support, then you shouldn't be in shock and awe that Donald Trump won. People are sick and tired of wars. People are sick and tired of Wall Street. People are sick and tired of corrupt politicians, which by definition is Hillary Clinton. Now, I am not here to defend Donald Trump on everything he does. In fact, I can't stand some of the things he's done. I've done videos pointing out how I do not like what Donald Trump is doing to a degree. But I learned my lesson with George W. Bush. I am no longer going to turn a blind eye to my own party. I am going to stand up against my party. I am going to stand up against Donald Trump or Paul Ryan or any other Republican who destroys our Constitution, who goes after the First Amendment, which I've already done. And I will continue. But Mr. Reich, you and your party are going to continue losing as long as you keep calling people like myself racist every time you have a disagreement with me, sexist, homophobic, and so many other things. People like myself actually want what's best for our country, just like you do, sir. But we're willing to have dialogue and debate, and we recognize this sucks. We have the choice between some horrible, pathetic establishment candidate who is bought and owned by Wall Street, who is a warmonger, and who has a record of being as corrupt as possible, or a complete nutjob, possible clown in Donald Trump. And people like myself said, absolutely, 100%, I'm voting for Trump. Because I am sick and tired of wars. I am sick and tired of our men and women dying needlessly. I am sick and tired of our debt not being even mentioned by people like Hillary Clinton. I am sick and tired of the Patriot Act not getting stopped, but expanded. I am sick and tired of people telling me that our economy is doing great when I can see with my own two eyes that people have 2 or 3 jobs and are barely surviving. People like me recognize what's going on in reality. And Mr. Reich, your complaining about Donald Trump shows how little you understand what's going on with reality. Go after your own party. I guarantee you, I will go after my own. And I will defend you, Mr. Reich, whenever you go after my party with legitimate reasons. But then when you start off your comments, opening your comment by calling, what's the guy's name? Andy Hustler, a violent human being, if that's what you're going to start off by doing, you're not promoting truth. You're not trying to help. You're not trying to unite. You're being a dark, fear-mongering person who is not uniting. You are dividing. And I will not support that as a Republican. I will not support Republicans that do that, and I will not support Democrats that do that. And as long as the Democrats keep doing that, you're going to keep having people like Donald Trump winning elections. That is all I've got. If you guys want more videos like this, please hit subscribe. If you guys like my video, give me a thumbs up. If you do not like it, please give me a thumbs down. But more importantly, tell me why. I want to know why you don't like it. Give me factual evidence. Give me reasons. The point of this channel is to bring us together to actually have healthy conversations and debate. If I wanted just propaganda where we are promoting a bunch of propaganda and we all agreed on everything, that'd be a cult. And I do not support that, no matter what side it is. Peace out, guys.